if successful, as we did with the recent return to play forum, which worked quite well. I will now pass to the movement of the first motion, D1, and Gary Warner will speak to this matter.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the forum. I'd like to first up thank TTV for allowing me to circulate one of my responses to the other affiliates with the aim of trying to at least have a hard copy for people to use if they would like. Anybody that didn't get one that would like one can email Bendigo Table Tennis bookings, all lowercase, at hotmail.com, and I can forward you a record of our proposal. I'd also like to say that I'm starting and putting this on a positive spin with the aim of making a better outcome for everybody as part of this motion. The discussion of the motion is really to allow the casual vacancies of an elected director, if they become vacant during a year, the board has the right to appoint a director into that particular position for the remainder of the original term. What we would propose in this motion is that appointed director that's filling that elected director position is up for re-election at the members at the next annual general meeting rather than serving out the whole period. That's in essence the actual motion, and the reason for that is that the the board composition described in clause 2.24.1 that the board should comprise an elected chair, elected deputy chair, 5 elected directors who shall be elected by the affiliates, and up to 2 appointed directors. We don't have a problem with any of that. We fully support the appointment of 2 directors, and we also support the appointing of directors to fill casual vacancies. This amendment purely aims to have appointed directors that are filling casual vacancies of elected directors to be up for re-election at the next annual general meeting. Our calculations, however, indicate that there's only currently 1 elected director out of the current board, and that doesn't match 24.1. And by looking at the TTV website, you could believe that all of, or the great majority of the board members are in actual fact elected, when in actual fact the term elected only describes the position that they occupy and not that they have been elected at all. This clearly shows that the clause 24.1, the board composition, is not working as intended, and it's broken and needs to be fixed. An initial look at other sporting organisations' constitution has identified that both Cricket Australia and Badminton Victoria are having these casual vacancies appointees up for re-election at the next annual general meeting, as per this proposed amendment. This dismisses any suggestions by the board that the Consumer Affairs Victoria would not ratify this amendment, or that is in conflict with good governance and standards. The board believes that this amendment will discourage people from filling casual vacancies, as these candidates are eligible and encouraged to stand for election at the next annual general meeting. I believe that rather than discouragement, this is instead an incentive for those candidates to perform well, to demonstrate to the membership their suitability to be on the board. It also provides the candidates with the confidence to know that if elected, they would then act with the support of the membership Should this occur
Right, that's
at a
30
point,
seconds, Gary. That's 30 seconds.
okay, then that appointed person becomes an elected director, and 24.1 is satisfied. The board believes that it upsets the skill base, and that's not true. It gives the members the opportunity to ratify any appointments that the board selects, and that is really only good for the membership.
Thanks, Gary. That's 5 minutes. I will now pass to, I believe, Paul Healy, who will respond to that.
Thanks, Richie. Thank you, everyone, for joining the call. Just to quickly cover off, we've written down our response, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. The first thing has been the history. The last couple of years, we haven't had constituted or contested elections. So this year we've got 2 positions available and we've had 2 people. The previous year we had 3 positions available and only 2 people, so there was no contest. And we've also had the challenge where in the last probably 3 or 4 years, 4 vacancies as they've casually come up from time to time, we've had nobody from the table tennis community who has put their hand up. So the challenge has been, how do you fill that to maintain the constitutional requirements of TTV, including the gender requirements now imposed on us by government, by Victorian government. So the board has looked to stabilise where we've had vacancies, and also of necessity to look outside the TTV community or the table tennis community. So the challenge here is not so much to change the rules, but for affiliates and presidents and members to have a very good look at who are the best and brightest in their areas that could be potentially put up. Again, this year we had one, Daniel Maloney, who's put his hand up from Bendigo, which is terrific, but this is quite rare. So the problem is not so much the constitution, which is consistent with TTAs, consistent with TTVs, consistent with Sport Australia, consistent with corporate best practice. The challenge is getting interest out of the core body of membership to participate in the governance of the sport and serve the best interests of the sport. So that's fundamentally the reason why we don't, as a board, we don't think it's worth changing. In fact, it would be a backward step because it would discourage people from filling a casual vacancy for 6 months and then go up for an election that they may or may not win and put in all that effort for potentially no benefit. So we think in time that would be a disincentive. We know that Cricket Australia is probably not the best corporate citizen to hold up for corporate governance excellence. We also know Badminton Australia are struggling at AGM time when they have this many casual vacancies and the bureaucratic challenge that presents. So from a stability point of view, I'm not sure that that's actually a good idea. So the fundamental issue here is we, as a board, we don't support the change because we don't think it's necessary. But at a deeper level is the level of participation for the best and brightest in our community, in the table tennis community, to step up and serve in these positions and make a difference for us all. Thanks, Richie.
Thanks, Paul. So any questions? There's I don't know if anyone's put their hand up. If they do so, Claire will throw to them in the order that they become apparent to her, and she will unmute that person. So Scott Houston.
Yeah, hi everybody. Scott Houston here from TTA. Just as an aside, one thing that TTA has done quite well over the past couple of years in terms of finding people to sit on our board and various subcommittees has been to instate a nominations committee. So one of the responsibilities of that committee is to, identify any skills gaps on the board or any committees, and then secondly, look to try and source people that could fill those gaps, and it has worked quite well. So that might be something that TTV could look at moving forward. if there are difficulties in finding people to fill positions on boards, etc. Just a suggestion or a comment from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And just to be clear, I'm not counting Scott's comments in the 5 minutes. So any other questions, Claire? Any raised hands? None to that? No. Okay. No questions on that. So with what we'll do now then is throw to, I think Martin, is that Martin's hand up? Martin, is your hand up?
Yes, it is. Thanks, Richie. Paul, the advertising of positions for the board has not always been sent out via email. I think half the problem is sometimes we don't, the first thing we hear about it is someone has already been appointed. Why isn't that done, that emails are sent out to all affiliates that a position is vacant and not just relying on Facebook and possibly Seek?
Paul, I don't know if you heard that, but it's probably a question that I can answer quicker because I'm the, I guess, in charge of the administrative side of things in the office. I don't think that's entirely true, Martin. It may not have been emailed. I couldn't absolutely guarantee that. I'd have to double check, but it's certainly on Facebook. It's certainly on the website. And I actually do think that in the vast majority of cases, because we did check this, I think at the SGM, because it was obviously a live issue then, it did actually get emailed out, and we demonstrated where the news item was, and we showed and we traced where the Facebook adverts were. So yeah, whilst I absolutely agree that should be the process, I don't think that it's fair to say that it hasn't been the process. I think that's exactly what's happened. I've only been here a relatively short amount of time, but I can guarantee that in the short amount of time that I've been here, when there has been casual vacancies arisen, we haven't received any responses from those notices that we put out to the TT membership.
It hasn't happened on all occasions, I can say that.
Oh, and that's certainly not, if one has slipped through it, in terms of the email, if you're talking about the email to all affiliates or an email to all members, and if one slipped through, then I apologise, that's an anomaly, but it's certainly an exception rather than the rule. And it certainly needs to be stated that there is a myriad of other communication channels, and it's difficult to see how someone would have missed any of those just because they didn't see one of those options. Any other questions? Okay. All right, that being the case, then we will move to D2. So for the purposes of this, Martin Elager, Zoe Kian and Ern Reichardt from Diamond Valley have been asked to speak to this motion. So now pass to you three guys, and you can speak however you wish to. The 5 minute starts.
Hello, I'm Ern Reichardt. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Diamond Valley Table Tennis Association. And this is really just an addition to an extra clause added to Rule 9A of the Constitution to put some limits on the ability to charge an increase in fees. And I know that there's going to be comments about the fact that the increase has been in line with CPI and it should be that today, but that's irrelevant. The horse is bolted, the fee is there. This is about the future, and it is about whether or not we really want to sustain the support and forget about self-interest, making sure that there is a system of adequate checks and balances in place. Really, I've been involved in table tennis now for over 35 years as an administrator, and we've seen lots of things come like this, and there are issues with every time there's an increase, because no one particularly likes it. But on the other hand, this one was a bit different, and there was quite an uproar because we don't have special general meetings, we don't have resignations of board members, we don't have allegations of bullying after it. There was no name calling of rival groups and things like that. And really, when it came down to it, 61% of the votes cast at that special general meeting supported removal of the board. That's not enough to carry it, but surely it's a wake-up call. And it also alerted us all to the need to perhaps look at the fact that there has to be some sort of checks and balances in place. Now, the claim that this large increase was justified was on three accounts. The fact that the board takes it seriously to act on the interests of table tennis for the benefit of affiliates and members. I don't see how a fee increase really did help many of us. The strategic plan, which was developed after lengthy discussion and input, including affiliates, members and TTA, and there was uncertainty about government funding. Now, I don't think those elements justifies the fee increases, because when we look at it, we actually find out the government funding in full was received, and perhaps it was a bit mischievous to say that an expected 25% wasn't received and that was a cut, when in fact that wasn't the case. If we look at it, TTA increased their fee by 18% for most members, but the TTV increase was 97%. And you'll look at it and say, but the overall increase in the total fee was only 85%. But if we really look at it, TTV's increase was out of line above the rest. If we look at the constitution of TTV, we find there are 24 objectives. 4 of those relate to promoting mutual trust, confidence between the TTA and members, at all times to act on behalf and the interest of members in Table Tennis Victoria, to represent the interests of its members, and to enable members to receive the benefits. Perhaps we weren't consulted, maybe the wrong affiliates were consulted along the way, and perhaps greater consideration needs to go into the different circumstances of the wide range of affiliates. Look, at Diamond Valley, we don't have our own venue. We're subject to rent increases by the council-owned thing. They have management in. Currently, we've just had Richmond Football Club subsidiary Alliance Leisure take control. They're a profit-making organisation, so our members have to pay. It is absolute fallacy to say table tennis is a cheap sport. If we look at our spring pennant, and this is the worst case, I have to admit, new players would have to pay $15 to $18 per hour over a 10-week 2-person competition, and new players in the 3-person team.
That's 30 seconds. That's 30 seconds in.
Okay, so when we recognise this thing, we actually see that we're actually asking us to make sure there's checks and balances. Is anyone against these checks and balances? Clearly the board doesn't like it. I ask all affiliates, even if you're not prepared to oust the elected board, to support the motion. Let's have prudent financial management. Ignore the hype, make your vote count, support a framework of accountability. Thank you for...
Thanks, Ian. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off mid-sentence, but I think you were finished there anyway. I'll now pass to Paul Healy, again on behalf of the board.
Thanks, Richie. Your board recommends that affiliates and members vote not approved. This is a very substantive issue, and I just wanted to make 4 quick points. The first is that the motion effectively removes the financial responsibilities of the board. This is one of our fundamental responsibilities and core purpose, and it's also the foundation of our legal fiduciary duty to our members. So ceding an aspect of this responsibility to a non-elected group of individuals represents exceptionally poor governance. The proposed motion hampers the board's ability to effectively make decisions in the best interests of the sport, which, as Ern just mentioned, is our primary purpose. The proposed motion would also provide a mechanism for minority groups within the sport to attempt to undermine existing administration and also potentially create a divisive landscape to the detriment of the sport. The proposed motion would potentially allow key strategic decisions to be taken without full and proper detailed understanding of the overarching issues affecting the organisation and the sport more broadly. Importantly, in addition to not necessarily having a full understanding of the wider commercial and strategic landscape faced by TTV, those outside the board have no legal duty towards its members. This contrasts markedly with the burdens imposed on directors who would have to answer for decisions made by non-elected persons under terms contained within this motion. So we would encourage all affiliates and members to vote not approved. Thanks, Richie.
Any questions? I think Scott Houston from TTA wanted to speak to this membership fees issue. Scott, you there?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just also, I noted in the paper around the timings part from the TTA perspective with our membership fees. Obviously, there's 3 levels of membership fees in the sport: national, state, and club. With our constitution, we are bound to let all state and territory associations know the membership fees for the following year by the end of September. But I can advise that I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to advise the fees for 2021 by the end of July. I'm intending to put forward a proposal or recommendations at the 23rd of July board meeting. So hopefully that will assist, to alleviate any timing concerns. And also as well, just like, I've been with TTA for just over 2.5 years now. One of the things that we are very, keen to do more of is to provide additional member benefits as well, because I think it has been recognised that the membership offering, there is room for improvement there. So we have been working on ways. We've implemented some things already, but we do have other things in the pipeline. But I think, if people see getting increased value for money for their membership, then that is more palatable when rate rises do eventuate as well. But my main point was just around the timing. We hope to be able to provide it by the end of July to state and territory associations. Thanks, Richie.
Max Coulthard, yeah. Thanks, Max.
Last year, MPTTA, which in Mornington, put up their fees by 50%, and it was unanimously approved by everybody at the meeting. And I think it was more about the fact that it was moving from a very small base of $20 to $30 and from $10 to $15 for juniors. So it probably, in percentage terms, it may sound a lot, but in actual terms, it was probably very little. And there hadn't been a change for over 10 years. So it was not really a great problem. The key thing I felt that differentiated what happened last year and with TTV and ourselves was the consultation process that took place to put up a strong argument in favour of that increase and an argument for the benefits that would take place by doing so and where that money would be channeled. And I think that is in fact more the issue that I certainly think that the percentage was significant and possibly higher than it should have been, but it was more the process that I think got a lot of people upset. And we just felt it could have been handled so much better, more than anything else. I always think that if you can argue a logical case and you can also make sure that you consult widely before shock tactics are used, and you say, well, here it is. There needs to be a strong consultation base that takes place and a case put forward. Now, a lot of that took place towards the end of the period, before the special general meeting, but by then I think there was a loss of trust, and it really now is the whole thing I see being put forward is all a reflection of a lack of trust. Would you think that is the case, Gary, and others that were actively involved in that discussion? It was actually a fact of the process and the lack of trust that occurred at the end of the day, more so than the amount, because I see 3% as a bit restrictive at times, because sometimes you need to increase by more than that, and I'm a little bit worried about that amount, and I'm a little bit worried that it has to go to a special general meeting. I think that does restrict the board a little bit too much than what it should be. I think it needs to be a little bit more realistic in how that needs to be handled. I'm a bit worried about this whole 3% part, and so that's my main concern, is I don't want to hamstring the board, but I want the board to act in a far more communicative and more effective manner than it has in the past. That's all.
Thanks, Max. Can't see any more hands raised. I just wanted to check, Paul. And I might be wrong, so please tell me if I am. So that was a discussion around the membership fees, and you talked to, I think you may have talked to D3 rather than D2. I could be wrong. I'll just unmute.
To membership fee. Sorry, Richie.
Yeah. So you were asked to respond to the membership fee question.
Yeah, and that's what I've done.
Yeah, fine, no problem. I think it's shuffling papers at my end, not yours. Thanks.
Thanks, Max, for putting up the points. I just want to say this. This is not just a 3% increase. The amendment we proposed is actually 3% plus the CPI. And currently we're looking at, it's about 5 to 6% at least, and roughly it's about $10 a year. So anything around $10, which TTV has always been doing, is acceptable. We understand that. It's those ones that really has gone over, which the clubs are not consulted. We don't understand why. We only just being notified. Here's the fee, please pay, and we don't have a say. So we try to make this amendment to bring to the awareness of TTV that they have obligation to consult members, and if there is a true need, like TTA's previous financial issues, we need to subsidize them. That's all fine, but judging from, for example, this current AGM is called within 32 days because of COVID-19, and we can all accommodate that. So if there is a need for such an urgent meeting, I believe clubs like us and like you will all be pretty happy to help out and vote for. So this particular amendment is to give most members a peace of mind. We're happy to pay the $10 extra. That's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Zoe. Again, just to clarify a factual point, CPI for the last 12 months was 1.7%, and in a retracting economy is unlikely to go much beyond that. But again, you can all check that at your leisure. I don't think there are any more questions. So that being the case, we will move to D3. Oh, so Gary, I think Gary's got a question. Sorry, Gary.
Yeah, I was just pointing out the wording within that motion that they're not trying to restrict particularly to that payment of 3% plus CPI, but that if it chose to go over that amount, then the reasons for that needed to be presented to the membership. And I think that's pretty much what Zoe was talking about. We're not trying to contain the whole issue. but it's a way of asking the board to communicate with the members if there is exceptional circumstances for exceptional fee increases.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I don't think there's much confusion there. It's pretty straightforward. The request is that if the amount that the board would like to increase the fees by are more than 3% plus CPI, then a special resolution and a special general meeting be required. So I think that's pretty obvious what's being presented there. So that being said, we'll move to D3. D3 was submitted by Diamond Valley as well, and this regards changes to bylaws to a general meeting. So again, I'll throw to the Diamond Valley representatives.
Aaron has prepared something. Aaron.
I'm being muted all the time, so I can't comment and make responses. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Look, this motion is an addition to the Constitution as Rule 33.5, and it simply states the association in a general meeting may be, by special resolution, formulate, amend or remove any bylaw or part of a bylaw. A number of members have voiced concerns and dissatisfaction, perhaps a small degree of outrage and contempt over some clauses and conditions in bylaws because it affects them, I guess. And this motion aims to provide a clear avenue or mechanism so grievances can be heard. Currently, members really don't have an avenue to have influence, or there is definitely a need for greater transparency. The motion calls for a special resolution, so to be successful, it'd have to be something that was an abhorrent change and something which really affected some when there was no sense of fairness. The fourth motion today will be an illustration of an example of such an oppressive and unnecessary bylaw, and one that should be rescinded. So in some ways, this is a forerunner. If I look at the TTV website, there are 21 bylaws on show, 8 are updated in 2019, 2 in 2020. That's a significant number of modifications, which in itself clearly dismisses a number of the arguments against the motion presented by the board. In the message, they indicate things about cohesion and overarching plan. Look, certainly, I don't even know what most of these changes are. I've never been notified. I don't spend my evenings reading through all these changes. And I don't think anyone's ever been officially notified. It's a communication issue again. I am not personally concerned, but I'm clearly conscious of the fact that it has an impact on other members. And a lot of them seem to relate to state teams. 2 anecdotes I'd like to come. One was a DDVTA junior who had high ranking, was not selected in the Victoria team due to unfair clauses in the bylaw. He was in China, couldn't attend training. Nevertheless, he made the Australian team. But I think there are sometimes it can be over-applied. The second complaint relates to bylaws restricting members from entering nationals if they're not selected in the Victorian team. I'm really gobsmacked at the arguments put, and I think in some ways it's just looking for something, and maybe it's smoke and mirrors, because take a really good look. You know, regular and reactive changes are common. There's no overarching plan. There's no evidence of sunset clauses. Therefore, there's no evidence of organised review process and coordination. How can it be said to be cohesive? And then we have the intimidatory and oppressive laws such as the bylaws clauses in Law 19. There seems to be a bit of a big brother undertone here. The arguments of dismissive members fail in the general to acknowledge the duty of care and responsibility in the best interest of members. They're very controlling. but are being declared as good governance. I think a consultative approach, elected by members, a board which accepts different views, diverse opinions, does not hide from challenges to its decisions, maintains a regular dialogue with members, is what we really want. We want someone who we can approach as approachable. It's time to accept greater input, provide mechanisms to enable this, and realise that the TTV board primary role is to serve. Listen to members. Don't always be defensive. I'd suggest that saying that our votes at an annual general meeting can cause change is not adequate enough.
30 seconds.
Right, I'll just conclude then. I think this is more of a procedural thing, and I think that I'd like to thank you for your time today. And I'd ask all affiliates to just really consider, think about it. Don't look at the hype, think about really the benefits of what I'm suggesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Again, I will throw to Paul Healy. You're unmuted now, Paul. And
Thanks,
so are
Richie.
you, and so is Jack Singler.
Okay, thanks, Richie. Just a few points again. The TTV board recommend that members and affiliates vote this as not approved. The board is appointed to govern the sport, which includes its bylaws, its rules of operation. The proposed motion effectively removes these responsibilities from the board and places them in the hands of unelected others. Again, this is ceding an aspect of the board responsibility to a non-elected group of individuals, and it represents extraordinarily poor governance. The proposed motion hampers the board's ability to make effective decisions in the best interest of the sport, which is its primary purpose. The Constitution and the bylaws are read collectively, and they're not in isolation to each other. Changes to any one of the bylaws would impact the integrity of the remainder of the governance documents and potentially lead to a series of disjointed and incoherent bylaws. With complex rules and regulations across the state, at a federal level and an international level with ITTF, the ability to remove bylaws at will may impose a significant risk to TTV. It is noted that if a member is dissatisfied with an element of the TTV board, the current constitution, like all good constitutions, allows them to make their feelings known and to influence the outcome via proper and democratic processes of casting votes at the annual AGM, putting up candidates for casual vacancies, and putting up candidates at AGMs as elections arise, that I was alluding to earlier. This process is the normal and proper one to be followed if change is to be effected. Any other approach will lead to instability and insufficient certainty of direction and haphazard results into the future. I'd also comment that whenever the bylaws are changed, and they are regularly reviewed, and there is a cycle of review, they are always put up on the website. Richie always notifies, and there is also a very robust independent complaints tribunal process that meets regularly to deal with, other than during this COVID-19 period, but normally meets regularly to deal with formal complaints put in regarding selection, disputes, and a whole range of other things. So there is a formally constituted independent disciplinary committee that's set up as well, and that's quite active. That's it. Thanks, Richie.
It's Jack Singler here. I was putting my hand up, but it appears that I wasn't raising my hand. I was saying well done. In a sense, that's what I was trying to say a few times. With regard to Martin's point about notification, absolutely agree. We've got to make sure we notify as many people as possible about casual vacancies, and that's what our TT office seeks to do. With regard to Mac's points, wake-up call, absolutely. I've said that on numerous public occasions since the fee increase and the way it was approached. With regard to bylaws, I'll be suggesting to the board that we have a bylaw subcommittee so that we can get people on board for that. Essentially, in terms of what Paul has been saying, corporate law and corporate governance necessitates what we do, and Constitution provides for AGMs, SGMs, and that's
30 seconds, Jack. 30 seconds.
That's the fairest way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So we'll now move on to the final mode. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Any questions relating to anything that's just been discussed? So we'll talk specifically around D3, which is the change in the bylaws through a general meeting. No? Okay. So in the absence of any specific questions there, we'll move on to D4, again submitted by Diamond Valley. The subject is the removal of clause 29 and 30. So Claire, if you could.
Thanks, Claire. I need to share my screen. I've got a PowerPoint presentation just to illustrate my arguments. Can I do that? Okay, thanks. Okay, can everyone see the?
No.
Okay, share. Okay, great. Okay, so D4 is about the removal of clauses 29 and 30 of bylaw 19. And here we have a summary of it. Basically, two clauses preventing any association with unaffiliated bodies through tournaments and pennant competitions. The breach of the bylaw is covered in clause 30. As you can see there, it results in disciplinary action, sanctions, exclusions from approved tournaments, and non-selection in state teams, and some other measures as well. So when was this introduced? This came out on the 1st of January 2017. So really speaking, the association has done without these clauses for 90 years since the creation of the association. So why now does their possible removal, present such a danger to the association? Okay, clauses 29 and 30 are unlawful, end of story. In December 2019, Diamond Valley engaged the services of sports lawyers, Queen Street, Melbourne, to review the legality of these clauses. They found that they are illegal for several reasons. It amounts to oppressive conduct as defined under the Associations Incorporation Reform Act. It restricts personal freedom of association, and potentially it can also amount to unlawful restraint of trade. Just in regard to the third point, an example of that might be where an official is prevented from officiating at a tournament and misses out on being paid. TV's response, they disputed that the clauses were illegal. They said that they're not unfair or discriminatory. They said they're not oppressive, as it is not compulsory to invoke clause 30. and that the clauses are aligned with the objects of association. Are they unfair and discriminatory? We think they are. Are they oppressive to those people involved? Most definitely. Clauses 29 and 30 are used as a threat, a deterrent to affiliated members. Play with us or else. If TTVs say that they're not going to invoke clause 30, then why should it remain? Diamond Valley is aware of at least 23 members who have been prevented from playing with unaffiliated clubs. No doubt there are others. Looking at the objects of association, are they aligned with TTV's objects? The very first paragraph of the Constitution states, the object is to control, promote, encourage and improve table tennis in Victoria. How can preventing members from playing in another competition, albeit an unaffiliated one, align with this object? It's in contravention of this object. The control aspect relates to activities within TTV's purview, not to those conducted by unaffiliated bodies. TTV are well within their rights to control activities within their association. As a member of TTV, I'm 100% in support of that right. What I cannot support is TTV trying to control things outside of TTV. They do not have any right whatsoever to control any activities over which they have absolutely no involvement in. So TTV say the reason is they don't want to support unaffiliated groups. Well, you know, not supporting them is one thing, but unfairly and possibly illegally trying to exert some control over their activities is completely different. The reason they want these clauses in is that it's all about control. And it's max of schoolyard politics. You can only play with us if you don't play with them.
30 seconds, Martin.
Okay. So I'll send this presentation out because there are a few more slides, but putting all legal arguments aside, let's just apply the pub test. How do you feel about this? You know, do you think it's right and fair that TTV has control over what we do outside of the association? Who should make that decision, TTV or us? I've just got one simple question for TTV. What law or bylaw gives them the right? Please support this motion and have these illegal clauses removed. Thanks.
Thanks. I'll now unmute Paul and Jack.
Paul will go first.
Okay.
Thanks, Richie. So I think this is a really significant matter and it's worthy of proper consideration. So sport is organised in Australia like our federal government system under a federated model, typically from an international body like ITTF, then down to ITTF Oceania, down to TTA, down to the state body, and then to the individual clubs and affiliates. And each one plays a critical role, a different role, but a critical role in that chain of events. So all the initiatives and pathways that are undertaken and the tournaments, the accreditation systems and so on, cascade through that governance model. And that's why affiliation is so important. So if you have an unaffiliated club should not be the members of that club should not have access to all those benefits and all that infrastructure if they're not contributing to it. It's quite straightforward argument. So if you followed this to its logical conclusion, I'll get Jack to speak about the alleged illegality of it in a moment, you would in effect decimate the association. You would go from 5,000 members to about 500, which are the ones that play in tournaments, almost overnight. And I would take, as a board, we would take some convincing that that's in the best interests of the sport, and it would actually erode the sport in the eyes of government because it would give the view that it's disorganised, a rabble, and I suspect our funding would dry up very quickly. So I think that would be a major concern. The legal position is important as well, and I'll get Jack to speak to that.
Okay. I wasn't aware that this firm of sports law was the law of the land. My understanding is that this law firm is a law firm like any other law firm. It doesn't find matters. It has an opinion, and the High Court of the High Court of the Land is what makes this this particular bylaw that that's been in place for 3 years possible. And why? Because we have a right to protect our brand. The High Court has recognised that. We have a right to protect our brand. Our sport will be decimated if this particular bylaw goes through. And really, it's a matter of case law. So that's our position. It's a very important position for the for Table Tennis Victoria and all our affiliates, because our sport will be decimated if this particular motion gets through.
Thanks. I can see Claire. I think is that Martin's raised hand, or is it? I think.
Greg.
Oh, Greg. Sorry, I'll go to. Can you unmute Greg, please?
G'day. I've been on the Croydon District Board since 2003, and it was mentioned that this bylaw came into effect in 2017. Every year that I've been on the board, and I'm sure other people who've been on their boards for that amount of time, they've got an affiliation package received from TTV, a whole lot of rules on there. And Rule 29 and Rule 30 has always been in that affiliation package. And obviously it's been cleaned up and put into a bylaw, but it has always been there. And it's been longer than 3 years. I've been there since 2003 on the Croydon board. I'm sure that it's been in that affiliation package way before I was on the board. Thank you.
Martin Elleger from Diamond Valley, I think your hand's up.
Yes, thanks, Richie. I know you did say that movements can't ask
That's
questions,
okay.
but if I could just ask your indulgence. Whether it's 2003 or whether it's 2017 or slightly earlier, both Paul and Jack were talking about things being decimated. The association has been going since 1927, going on 90 or 100 years, but those bylaws are only relatively recent. So how is it that they didn't decimate the association prior to that because they weren't included in the Constitution?
Greg, I might ask you to answer that, bearing in mind your previous comment regarding the longevity of them. You're unmuted now.
Okay. Yeah, well, my understanding of it's actually been much longer than 15, 16 years. There's been this affiliation thing has been in probably over 30 years, if not longer. But I don't think it's decimated, but it's the right rule to be in there. And I'll go back to what Paul says. Having that rule taken out is to the detriment of the sport.
Thanks,
and
Greg.
Yeah.
Max, I think you had your hand up, Max. Yeah.
Okay. We believe that united we're far stronger, and that we should be encouraging affiliation. We therefore encourage everybody to affiliate around us as much as possible. We believe that really if they want to take or have any benefits, people should affiliate. So we're very strongly in favour of affiliation. I think the key element here is, the way you look at it. Do you allow people who are affiliated to play elsewhere, rather than do you allow unaffiliated people to play in our competitions and tournaments, etc.? And the answer, I suppose, is the way we've perceived it in the past is we've looked at it as you can't play in our patch unless you affiliate, and therefore you don't get the benefits. Please affiliate. And that's what we believe in. We need to continually push to grow our membership and discourage people being unaffiliated and encourage them to affiliate. So the question is it that we stop people that are affiliated playing elsewhere, or do we have a strategy to encourage unaffiliated people to join and become affiliated? So I suppose it's the reflection of the emphasis, and maybe this has gone a bit further than the past because we've never allowed anyone who's not affiliated to play unless affiliated. So it's the other way around, I suppose. What we're discussing is, do you allow someone who's affiliated to then go somewhere else? That's my point.
Thanks, Max. Was there another hand up? Oh, I can see Zoe. Zoe?
Yes, thank you. Max, you put through a very good question. So it's really about inclusive, not exclusive. We cannot prevent people, but we should encourage them to affiliate. So if certain clubs, for example, they really cannot affiliate with TTV, but their players simply wanted to play in different clubs, they should be encouraged to go to any other clubs. They can affiliate with affiliated association, and they can also be affiliated with unaffiliated association. There shouldn't be a punishment. This particular bylaw is just punitive. It just prevents people from, making their own choices. What we are suggesting is let people play where they want to play, and we encourage. Diamond Valley will encourage, and we will do everything possible to encourage more players to join us. Even someone, they go to their local small clubs or in their school, and we say, join us and you will have this much benefit. You can play in tournaments, you can be selected. Why not? And then if we have this particular clause still in, then we have to say, oh, are you playing with so-and-so? I'm sorry, you cannot play with them. You have to be exclusive.
30 seconds, Zoe.
So that's the part that we want to argue. It's not encouraging. So if we remove that, then we can really encourage players. Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. We've got time for one question, but please make it a question rather than a statement. Any hands? Okay. In that case, I'll just make some remarks in closing from a procedural point of view. So I think it's important that everyone is clear on the process from here on in. Firstly, in the event that any votes require us to lodge a set of new rules with Consumer Affairs after any special resolution is passed, there is a set process, and the process is that we then have to await for their confirmation. CAV will approve or not the changes. Normally the process takes up to approximately 2 months, which was our experience. You may recall we made a very slight change at the last regarding the gender quota. Sorry, that's not a slight change, significant change. We made a change to the constitution that took approximately 2 months to come back to us. CAV have advised in general that due to their working from home arrangements, they have been slowed down in recent months, so that period is expected to be longer. So the relevance of that is until confirmation is received, any existing constitution and rules remain in place. I will, of course, communicate any changes as usual via the TTV website and by email to all the affiliates. So that's just a procedural point on how it works with Consumer Affairs Victoria and the timings. Regarding voting itself, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was crystal clear about the voting procedure from here on in. We're not voting on these matters today, as you're aware, and we're also not going to be voting at the AGM itself. All voting will happen between now and the AGM via electronic means only. The relevant voting papers have been included in the amended AGM pack, which was sent out via email on the 10th of June. Specifically, voting information is referred to in the document, which is called Voting Info and Zoom Quick Guide. Now, depending on your individual circumstances, you may need to submit several documents, depending on your current status. Each affiliate must be represented by a delegate. If an affiliate member has not forwarded the 2020 form to TTV yet, it should do so ASAP, and certainly before 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 9th of July. If no updated form is received, the delegate name applicable to the previous AGM will be used. If an appointed delegate is unable to attend the AGM, it can nominate a nominee delegate to attend. Again, an affiliate member must advise in writing the name of its nominee delegate using the prescribed form, which is the 2019 nominee delegate form, again by 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 9th of July. For electronic voting to occur, an affiliate or life member must complete and email the prescribed form and ballot papers to the returning officer by 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 9th of July, to the very specific email which I want to draw your attention to, which is ttvagm@gmail.com. Again, this is all referred to very specifically in the AGM papers, but it's important that I call it out now. The electronic votes need to be returned to ttvagm@gmail.com by 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 9th of July. This is a special standalone email address, and votes will not be accepted at any other email address or by mail. The reason for that is because that email address will be jointly monitored by both Table Tennis Victoria and Vic Sport, who have once again kindly agreed to act as an independent scrutineer. If you're unsure about any aspect of this, please reach out offline to Claire Montgomery, who is the TTV returning officer, using the normal office contact details. Thank you for your time. This is unusual, these circumstances. We'll see each other via Zoom in a few weeks for the AGM itself. In the meantime, please follow the TTV return to play plan and stay safe. I'm happy to announce that the return to play plan was updated yesterday, and it does provide some extra relief upon lobbying from us and agreement with Sport and Recreation Victoria. So if you're not familiar with those changes that were announced yesterday, please avail yourself of that information on the website. And that's just a general comment. The website will always be the best place to look for information and to check whether any information has or has not been disseminated, rather than relying on a specific email which may or may not appear in your inbox for various reasons. Okay, so that's it from me. We finished more or less on time, so I appreciate your discipline and professionalism in working with this structured process. I think Jack would like to make one final comment in closing.
Yes. I just wanted to thank you, Richie, and doing an excellent job, and thank everyone. Paul, did you want to add anything further to that?
No, I'm fine, Jack. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone for participating and taking the time. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I'll now close this meeting. Any questions procedurally, as I said, please email the office. Thank you. Bye.